Starfield versus Star Citizen. Everybody's making these videos. I thought I'd do a performance one. Don't worry, this is a one-off. I won't make any more Starfield videos. We're all about Star Citizen performance on this channel. Let's just get straight into it. We've got some city testing first of all. So I've gone into Neon, a city in Starfield, and compared it to the sort of place that looks similar-ish. Area 18. They both got that kind of neon, cyberpunky vibe. They're similar. The crucial difference between the two is that Area 18 is on a full planet that you can literally get up and fly around. This scene in Neon is just a big hall, and actually if you look up, there's just a roof on the thing, and as soon as you go out any of the side doors, you're loading into a loading screen. So they're not comparable from a technical standpoint, but from a performance point of view, you can compare them. And what's interesting is that actually they're quite similar in terms of average FPS. So this is on my main system, 7800 X3D 4080, full description, everything, test setups is below. They perform pretty similarly. Obviously, the 1% percentile there is much lower on the Star Citizen result, and that just hints at the Star Citizen CPU problems that we just are all used to now. The CPU is by far the most crucial part of Star Citizen performance, and even with the 7800 X3D, you're going to get stutters and glitches and just not buttery smooth performance in the way that actually Starfield is pretty nice to play here. But when you switch to a lower end system, things get a bit more interesting. So I've got an i5-8400 for this test, which is pretty close to the recommended spec for Starfield. And then also for a testing, and actually how I got this game, I picked up a cheap RX 6600. That is close to the 5700, which is actually the minimum spec recommendation for Starfield. So quite interesting testing here. And as you see, comparing this from Starfield to Star Citizen, you'll see Star Citizen has a major problem here. Now, the CPU is completely under all sorts of load here. It's the bottleneck, in the way that actually in Starfield, it's completely the GPU that's the bottleneck. Star Citizen performance, either at 1080p or 1440p, is basically the same. The GPU isn't really being pushed that hard here because the CPU is just completely in the way. Starfield's performance, it's okay, but really I don't see anything in this scene in Neon that means that these frames would be there. I don't see why at 1080p medium, at 1080p low doesn't look great, so I wouldn't recommend that, but 1080p medium, to only get 60 FPS with this relatively decent-ish card, there's nothing on screen that actually means that that would be happening from my point of view. There's no ray tracing, it doesn't look incredible. It just seems to be overly heavy on GPUs in a way that Star Citizen is obviously overly heavy on CPUs. But when we go to planets or moons, things slightly change. These scenes sort of look similar-ish. They're kind of barren-ish places. Obviously this isn't a really scientific test, but you'll see here when we look at the main system, again with the 4080 at 4K, so we're really on the GPU in both scenes here, you are seeing a Star Citizen result at 4K native compared to Starfield 4K native. Massive difference in performance, and again there's no real good reason why. It doesn't look dramatically better. I think it does look better than Star Citizen here, but there's nothing really going on that means that it should be losing 20 FPS. It's a big chunk of frames, and this just seems to be consistent across the game. There are some reported maybe unoptimized issues with the Nvidia cards, but it just doesn't really make much sense why this would be this particular scene where nothing is going on. It's static, there's no movement or anything going on. Why is this really quite so low when Star Citizen is able to push a fair chunk more frames? And obviously then we've got FSR in the middle, which is 1440p upscaled to 4K, so you gain some frames there, but not very much really. But it's a similar sort of story with the lower end CPU and GPU. At 720p there for Star Citizen, we've now become CPU bound, so the CPU is now in the way. Starfield is still GPU bound, and for this scene to be only getting 72 FPS at 720p, even with a pretty low end card, again, I just don't really understand why that is the case. And obviously as you then go into 1440p, which this card isn't really designed for, and then 1440p Ultra, you're really tanky performance. I mean, the good thing about Starfield is that the graphics options actually do things. So you can gain performance by dropping, and the low setting is no good, but 1080p medium looks fine. But one day we'll hopefully get graphics options that actually do something in Star Citizen, and that will be a bit of a game changer. We've got to look at Starfield and say there's some stuff here that we want in Star Citizen from a performance and graphics option point of view, but the way I describe it is kind of this. I'm enjoying Starfield so far. It is not a technical masterpiece. It is fun though. Star Citizen, I think, is a technical masterpiece, but it's not really that fun yet. If they can combine the technical wizardry that they've got to give us seamless planets, all this stuff, no loading screens, if they can, over the years, add fun, add gameplay, and you've got both, you've got a technical masterpiece that's also fun to play, then Star Citizen will end up being something quite special.